Central banks are the institutions that truly hold power in the world, yet they are almost never talked about. They rarely appear on television, never face the ballot box, and when most people are asked, what do they even do? They can't give a proper answer. But never forget this. They decide how many cents of money in your pocket is worth, the purchasing power of your salary, and the value of everything you've worked your entire life to save. With a few keystrokes, they can create wealth out of thin air or make everything evaporate overnight. And the strangest part? They are not accountable to you, me, or any voter. This is a story of how central banks quietly took over the modern financial world. They market themselves as neutral referees, but in reality, they are both the ones who write the rules of the game and its biggest players. It is a hidden power, masterfully engineered finance, and a fake stability illusion that keeps telling us all everything is fine. Once you pull back the curtain and see how it all began, you will never again look at your salary, your debts, or your savings the same way. Let's turn the clock back to 1694. England at that time was broke. Wars with France had drained the treasury dry. Right then, a group of London's wealthiest merchants went to government and said, "We'll lend you £1.2 million, but in return give us permission to set up a bank. This bank will be allowed to issue paper money backed by government debt." The deal was accepted, and on that day the Bank of England was born. Note this carefully. This bank was not established to serve the public. Its sole purpose was to fund the government with debt and profit from it. The foundation of modern central banking is exactly that: selfish, not to bring stability, but to lend to the state and make money from it. By the 19th century, almost all central banks in Europe had adopted the same model. They were privately capitalized, had special privileges, issued money, bailed out governments in crises, and in return gained power that democratic oversight could not reach. America's path was stormier. Americans had always been suspicious of centralized financial power. The first and second banks of the United States were accused of being toys of the elite and were shut down after fierce political battles. For many years, the country had no real central bank. The system ran on colorful banknotes issued by private banks, wild speculation, and occasional horrific panics. That is, until the panic of 1907 turned everything upside down. That crisis was so severe that it was stopped not by the government, but by the personal intervention of a private banker, J.P. Morgan. This event made the pressure for "we now need a central bank" unbearable. In 1913, after secret meetings and midnight decisions, the Federal Reserve Act was passed and the Fed was created. It was sold to the public as a regional, decentralized, independent system. In reality, it became a gigantic central authority that controls interest rates, the credit spigot, and the money supply in one hand. From here, the story gets darker. The Federal Reserve is not a government institution. It is a public-private hybrid. Its chair is appointed by the U.S. president, but its 12 regional banks are private, make profits, and distribute those profits to their shareholders. It lives not on taxes, but on the interest from the government bonds it issues and the fees it collects from member banks. Behind closed doors, it makes decisions that change the lives of millions, yet is accountable to not a single voter. Its official mandate is maximum employment and price stability. Its unofficial mandate is more often to rescue the very institutions it is supposed to oversee. We saw this in 2008. It cut rates to zero, printed trillions of dollars, bailed out failed investment banks, took toxic assets onto its balance sheet, and sent asset prices to the moon. In 2020, we watched the same movie again. It even bought corporate bonds, pumped unlimited liquidity into markets, doubled billionaires' wealth, while the rest of us were told to believe in trickle-down fairy tales. The deeper truth is this: central banks don't just manage the economy, they shape it. They decide who wins and who loses. When they cut rates, stocks soar and asset owners get richer. When they raise rates, the working class pays higher interest on everything from mortgages to credit cards, car loans to student debt. They say they are independent, but in reality they are intertwined with the financial system they are meant to regulate. Their chairs come from Goldman Sachs and go to BlackRock when they leave. They deliberately speak in vague language. Reports full of technical jargon are written precisely so the public won't understand. Today, Central banks are perhaps the most powerful and least accountable institutions in history. The Fed, ECB, BOJ, BOE, they are not neutral referees. They are the architects of our monetary reality. Since 2008, they have made the world unrecognizable. Zero interest rates stopped being extraordinary. Quantitative easing became an everyday term. They printed trillions and bought government bonds, corporate debt, even mortgage-backed securities. The result? Stocks, real estate, and commodity prices rocketed. Those who own assets lived through a golden age. Everyone else watched their wages melt, home prices fly out of reach, and their savings evaporate at zero interest. While most people look for someone to blame, politicians, immigrants, fate, they never point the finger at the invisible hand that creates money. The bitter truth is this: the modern financial system is designed to keep you constantly running, constantly borrowing, constantly consuming, not to set you free. Central banks oil this consumption wheel, reward debt, and punish saving. Every press release, every emergency intervention is done in the name of stability. But the stability they protect is not yours. It is the stability of the system, the banks, and asset owners. Remember what happened in 2020. The COVID crash brought the fastest stock market drop in history. Within weeks, the Fed created more than $3 trillion in liquidity. The market bounced back. Billionaires doubled their wealth. Yet at the same time, millions lost their jobs. Small businesses went under. Tenants were evicted. What was saved was not the economy. It was the illusion of strength. Balance sheets ballooned, debts multiplied, addiction deepened. The moment central banks distort the price of money, they distort everything. Proper risk pricing, the ability to save, the possibility of planning for retirement. They create bubbles, then watch those bubbles burst. Real wealth becomes unreachable. Paper profits vanish overnight. And the worst part, they steal human agency. Most people have no idea why their student loan interest is what it is, why their savings earn nothing, why home prices are insane. They don't know because those decisions are made in rooms they can never enter by people they can never vote for. So who really controls central banks? The official answer is always the same. Central banks are independent. They are not influenced by politics or special interests. The real answer is much simpler. Central banks protect the financial system that created and feeds them. That is, the big banks, the giant investment funds, Wall Street, and the very old, very rich financial families. The most concrete proof is a phenomenon everyone calls a revolving door. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's an openly visible fact. Today someone is a senior executive at Goldman Sachs. Tomorrow they become vice chair of the Federal. A Fed chair finishes their term and immediately becomes a highly paid advisor at BlackRock or JP Morgan. Someone working at the European Central Bank leaves and joins Deutsche Bank's board the next day. The same people keep walking through the revolving door their entire careers. Private bank, central bank, private bank, central bank. When these people make decisions at the central bank, they never forget the interests of the big banks they will one day return to. That's why independence remains only on paper. In practice, central banks mostly serve the long-term interests of large financial institutions. In short, they tell you the central bank is independent. But in reality, it has always been part of the financial elite that gave birth to it and continues to feed it, and it protects that elite's interests. But now you are no longer an outsider. Once you see how the structure works and how central banks protect it, you begin to free yourself. Financial literacy is not just about budgeting or buying stocks. It is power. It is knowing that money is not neutral, that inflation is not random, that interest rates are political. It is knowing that true freedom requires understanding the system and escaping its traps. That might mean owning assets that cannot be printed, creating income streams that are not tied to debt cycles, rejecting the growth fairy tale that is fueled by endless debt and constant consumption, because that growth is a treadmill. The faster you run, the harder it is to stop. So what can you do? First, start seeing clearly. Central banks are not gods. They are players. Their tools, interest rates, liquidity injections, asset purchases, are designed not for your freedom, but to keep a fragile, debt-inflated system standing. You may not be able to defy the system and win, but you can move yourself to a place it cannot reach. Diversify, simplify, get out of debt, turn toward things of real value, learn how money really works, and teach others. Question the narratives. Because when the next crisis comes, and it will, the central bank will do what it always does: save the system, not the people. Protecting yourself is up to you. History doesn't repeat itself, but if you don't understand it, it will still crush you. If this opened a new window for you, keep following. History hide the answers. I'm only showing you where to look.